What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. In this video today, we're discussing your sensitivity problems and aiming problems that you have in Infinite, okay? I'm going to discuss every single setting that affects your aim in this game. I have broken down everything in a step-by-step process. I'm going to show you, I'm going to build off a blank thumbstick, if you will, and present to you exactly how each aiming and sensitivity-related setting affects your aim. It's very complicated, but I'm going to break it down and make it very easy for you to understand, I promise you. So, with that said, let's get right into it. The first sensitivity setting is look sensitivity horizontal and look sensitivity vertical, okay? For horizontal, it says set the x-axis sensitivity for right thumbstick. And for vertical, set the y-axis sensitivity for left thumbstick. So, y-axis, if you don't know, is up and down, it's vertical. And x-axis is a line that goes left to right, so it's horizontal. Now, I'm not going to draw on the thumbstick yet, or change the way it looks yet, but just take a note that the true name of this setting should really be max look sensitivity horizontal and max look sensitivity vertical. The moment you change it to max look sensitivity, whenever you say that in your head, everything else starts to make sense, okay? Because that's where it gets complicated, okay? So for purposes of this video, and honest, this is my true settings. I do play at max sensitivity, 10, 10, 5, but just it's also very easy to comprehend in this manner. So look sensitivity horizontal, 10 is your highest value. So this is the fastest sense you can have. If you want to be slow, then go to the lowest, which would be 1. Okay, so my look sensitivity horizontal is 10. When I look left to right, it's going to be fast. Same with vertical. When I look up and down, it's going to be fast. Whatever setting you do, pro tip, make sure that these values are equal. Make sure that this is 10 and that's 10. If your horizontal is 4, then make sure your vertical is 4. The reason for that is your circular movement is going to be much more consistent. Now, before we look at look acceleration, let me just show you this because it's just a simple build off of the first settings we looked at. Zoom sensitivity is essentially a multiplier, okay? So your magnification is your zoom. So if you're at 1.4 zoom, 2.5 zoom, I don't know which one is the sniper and the BR, the pistol, I have no idea. But let's just say that the 1.4 is the pistol, okay? When you zoom in with a pistol, and it says 1.4 sensitivity, because that's what you have here, then this is the sensitivity multiplier that will be applied to your max look sensitivity horizontal and max look sensitivity vertical, okay? So if this is 2, then when I zoom in with a pistol, my max look sensitivity is going to be 20 for both these values, okay? So it's 2 times 10, which is a 20. So that's how that works. Now, why am I calling these two values max look sensitivity horizontal and max look sensitivity vertical? Because there's something called look acceleration. Look acceleration is the time it takes for your sensitivity to ramp up from 0, stationary, to 100% of whatever these two values are. Okay, so if it's 10, 100% of that is 10. That is your max. But whenever your thumbstick is stationary, it's at 0. It's 0% of 10. So you're really at 0. That's your true look sensitivity when you're not moving your thumbstick. But the moment you start moving it, this look acceleration is saying, hey, how fast is it going to take me to ramp you up from 0 to 100% of 10? Okay, so if I set this to 5, it is the most instant that it can possibly be. We don't have the value, but it is the most instant it can possibly be. If it's at 1, you're gonna feel a delay. It's gonna be slower. So I personally recommend and play with the maximum look acceleration because it makes it the most responsive that it can be. As soon as I start moving my thumbstick, I pretty much feel like I'm on 10, okay? It's the fastest I can get to it at least. So looking at our drawing here, we're just going to assume at this point that you start at the middle of your thumbstick and go to the rim of your thumbstick. Okay, at the rim, if you were to hold your thumbstick all the way down, that is when you are achieving max look sensitivity. Okay, and so this line that connects the middle of the thumbstick to the edge of the rim, that is simply plotting, okay, you're at 0%, now here you're at 10%, now here you're at 20% of the max sensitivity value. But the look acceleration is simply the time it takes to clear that line, okay? So if you're at 5, then let's just assume that that's instant, okay? If I'm at, it's as if you visually see it correctly, okay? It's as it's seen here. If I'm not moving my thumbstick, it's at 0. The moment I get to the rim with my thumbstick, I'm at 10, okay? The moment that I hit the rim. But if I move the look acceleration down to 4 or 3 or anything less than 5, then what starts to happen is now there's a delay created. So let's say I hit the rim, there'd be a split few millisecond delay, and then you'd hit 10. Okay, so as soon as I hit the rim, maybe I'm at 8. You wait a few milliseconds and then you hit 10. It gets even worse when you drag this lower, okay? It would be almost a whole second. Let's just assume, okay? We don't have these values, but I'm just trying to paint the picture of what this is actually doing to your sensitivity. Okay, so now it's only natural that we look at the input threshold. So as you can see, we have 6 more settings here, 4 of which are dead zones, and 2 of which are input thresholds, okay? There's move and look, move, look, move, look. These are 3 sensitivity settings, okay? One is the move is for your left thumbstick, the look is for your right thumbstick. That's essentially how it goes. Now, so the max input threshold, this is the line. in that graphic, okay? The line itself is the input threshold because you are setting how far the move thumbstick is from the edge or the rim before maximum input registers, okay? So the shorter that you make this threshold, the shorter you're making the line, and so you're essentially making it to where you don't have to push the thumbstick all the way to the rim to achieve your max look sensitivity, which remember, that was our first assumption. That's the assumption we made at the beginning. You got to go to the rim, and that's where max is. Well, now this input threshold is saying, no, if I want it to be 0, then this line is going to be very, very small, and now I can hit max look sensitivity halfway to the rim, essentially. Again, we don't know these actual values, but this is what it's doing to your sensitivity. So if you want it to feel snappier, then make your input threshold lowest. And what you're doing is you're shrinking that line. So now you don't have to push your thumbstick all the way to the rim to get to 10 sensitivity in my situation. You only have to push it halfway to the rim. Okay, now building off that, you have your center dead zone. The center dead zone also influences that line's length. So a center dead zone, it's this red circle now in the graphic. And essentially what it is how far do you want to have to move your thumbstick from stationary position? How far away from that do you want it to move before you start actually seeing your reticle move in game? Personally, I think it's best to have it as instant as possible, right? So you would want this circle to be as small as possible. So the moment that I start moving my thumbstick, I'm going to see my reticle move because that's the whole point of me moving my thumbstick. I'm not moving it so that in 20 milliseconds from now, then I can see my reticle move. No, you want it to be as instant as possible. The problem is that the more instant you go, the more stick drift you will see because every controller is made differently and they all have these little hiccups. So you have to adjust this based off your controller. My recommendation is to go as low as possible on both without seeing stick drift. Okay, so for me, that's at 3 and 8, and really I do see a little bit of stick drift, but I have learned to adapt to it, and it's not that much, so I'm fine. But that's the recommendation. So that's center dead zone. Again, the smaller that you make this value, the smaller the circle is going to be. So make it as small as possible, because then you'll see your reticle move faster than you would on a higher dead zone or a larger circle, right? The line is starting closer to the middle of the thumbstick. So as soon as you get to that line, that's when your sensitivity is going to start moving. Okay, and then to make it even more complicated, which I seriously don't think that they need this in the game. This is where it's like, this is super excessive. I mean, first off, all these are really excessive to have, but then they added axle dead zones, and it's like, why? There's no point for this, but I'm gonna explain it anyway. It's literally just it's just more dead zone, right? So you have that center dead zone, which is the inner red circle. Well, now you can also control axle dead zones, and it affects both axes, X and Y, horizontal and vertical. So the larger you make this value, you are creating dead zones now on just the axes themselves. So if you move on the axis, let's look at just the horizontal axis here. It's weird because the horizontal axis is really going to affect your up and down aiming. So if I were to start moving my thumbstick down, again, this affects the line. And so theoretically, if the axle dead zone is larger than the center dead zone, then the line, the input threshold line, will be shrinking. So, I mean, it gets super complicated. The point being, definitely just have these off. You do not want these on. Just trust me, it is a pain in the rear end. You don't want them on. But anyway, with that said, you're now a master of the sensitivity. That is how it all works. And now that you have the understanding, you probably also now understand why it's so complicated, because multiple settings affect the same thing, the same result, right? For instance, your look acceleration is how fast you clear that line, right? So the faster you make your acceleration, the faster your sensitivity is going to feel. But also, you could also achieve that same feeling of a faster sense by shortening the line, by shortening the input threshold. And by doing that, you're also going to make your acceleration going to feel faster, because now the line is shorter. So without even changing the acceleration, you're going to clear that line faster because the line is shorter, right? So multiple things influence multiple of the same results. And so things just get very, very complicated. My suggestion, rewatch this video if you have to. If you just understand that raising or lowering the value will increase or decrease the fastness of your sensitivity, that's the simplest way to look at it. So with that said, guys, that is the whole tutorial. I hope I clarified in your mind a little bit of what's going on here. If you have any questions, make sure to leave them down below. I will try to answer as many questions as I can. I understand that this stuff is very complicated, and if you don't know what you're doing, it is very, very confusing and frustrating. So appreciate you guys. I'll see you on the next video. Peace.